Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and just a quick reminder to join my mailing list. Check out my books. By the way, 1 year anniversary is coming on July 1st of my children book, #1. So check it out if you have children or you want to gift something to your kids. Links down below. Follow me on Instagram, and PayPal and Patreon as well is down there. Today I have for the second time Gary Giuffre, because our first conversation was very well received, and you, my audience, were saying that you would like to hear more from Gary, which I'm sure we will today. And I would like to welcome back Gary. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're most welcome, and thank you for having me, Anya.
Thank you. And quick little story before we start. And I spoken to Gary about this, if it's okay to share. So what happened is we had our conversation scheduled for Tuesday this week, and I was waiting on Zoom and waiting and waiting and waiting, and Gary wasn't there. And Gary, would you like to tell us what happened, which was quite demonic in my opinion, but what took place that you were not able to make it?
Well, the town where St. Jude's is located, and I was going to do it there, the city itself got hit by a fierce electrical storm. And as a result, a lot of our equipment was destroyed by surges in through the electrical grid of the city. And in the city itself, as well as the Union Pacific Railroad, that has a major line going through the city, they had their controls for their crossings. That was knocked out. I mean, it was just a total mess. So obviously, without electricity, I didn't have any Wi-Fi, and I couldn't do it there. Well, I was going to do it at my house. Well, I lost my internet in my house too, and I'm 65 miles from the church. But there was a whole bunch of storms going on all over the place. So that's the only thing I can, from a natural viewpoint, that's the only way I can explain it. But yes, I agree with you. It does suggest something diabolical involved there.
Yes, but you mentioned to me that there are some quite severe damages that will affect the broadcasting from the church, right?
Right.
And it needs reparation.
We lost 7 of our cameras, and maybe they can be fixed with new power boards. They may have to be replaced. But it's before we're done, it's going to be in the thousands of dollars. And people that maybe some of your viewers watch our live stream on Sunday, because the sermons that they're going to hear are very much like our conversations. And it's a kind of a unique church in that respect. Father Lewis Campbell doesn't pull any punches, and he's 89 years old, and he tells it like it is. And so a lot of people watch it from all over the world. We have a big community in Goa, India that watch it. And so
do you need support,
we're going to be only able
support?
to do it on a diminished scale this Sunday.
Do you need some people to donate, maybe,
if
to
they
help
would
you
like
to review?
to, that would be wonderful. That the church does have a PayPal account. And if they would like to go to the website to see how to be directed there, they could go to Saint, let's spell out the word SAINT, Jude, JUDE, Shrine, SHRINE, St. Jude Shrine.tv. If they'll go there, they'll be directed to a place where they can make a donation. And they can do PayPal or other means are available. But I mean, that's much appreciated. And I also want to say I appreciate the very kind comments of your viewers. My goodness. I didn't see a negative one, did you? I didn't see one. There was one that was maybe 1 or 2 were kind of neutral.
Yeah, I don't think actually there were. Yeah, that's.
And all of them, they were all thumbs up. I didn't see a single.
Yes. Yeah.
Dislike,
Well, now it's. I was. YouTube doesn't show dislikes anymore. However, that was very well received conversation, and I appreciate my audience too, because I know my audience is very evolved and also very open-minded, and it's so important nowadays, because there is more and more truths coming out. And this is just the beginning for the truths to be revealed for us and see. And we think we already have an idea, and then another thing shows up. And so, Gary, after our first talk, you told me this: we barely scratched the surface. That's what you told me. So I would like you to tell me what you mean by that, and where would you like to start today?
I don't know, and I should have gone back to watch our discussion so I don't repeat myself. Some things might bear repeating. I did mention, which I didn't have, but I do now, a Department of State document. And I want to just show you what it looks like. It's all over the World Wide Web. It's easy to find. It was classified. Now it's secret. It has been declassified. And let me put on my reading glasses. And basically it's saying that speculating on Pius XII's successor, sources said that the college may very well choose an old cardinal whose short pontificate may be devoted entirely to the reorganization of the Roman Curia left by the deceased Pope in deplorable state. Now, see, already they knew where this was going, because they were in the background engineering this election, or I should
what
say.
Year? What can you remind us what year this is?
The date of this document is October 11, 1958, and this is 2 days after the Pope had died, Pius XII. It goes on to say that their source indicated that the election of Siri, Ruffini, or Ottaviani would be a misfortune for the church, since these three cardinals have an unrealistic approach to great problems facing the world today. Yeah, unrealistic if you're looking through the lens of a globalist or a one-worlder. And I don't think Ruffini was ever that much in the running. He was the bishop, Cardinal of Palermo. Ottaviani by then was already very old and was nearly blind. It was really Siri. That was the one they were worried about. And so, as I say, this is out there, and it's been out there. The Houston Press, I think I alluded to this, but I didn't show you the headlines. This was the day the Pope died, and it said, who will be the next Pope? These cardinals stand out. Well, it has a picture of Lecaro and Siri. And it goes on to sing the praises of Lecaro, but then it goes on to say that Siri fulfills way more of the criteria they're looking for. So the Houston Press, I mean, this is all the way over in Texas, they're practically predicting that Siri's going to be elected. And I showed you the picture before, and this is not a real good, this is a better picture. The one at the top shows the white smoke, and then the one at the bottom shows this gray smoke, which hardly could be discerned from the black sky, 5 minutes apart. And so again, the Houston Press came out with this headline: 8 ballots, no Pope yet. That means 8 ballots means 2 days of voting. But there's a very interesting article on the side: guard put under arrest for laxity. What are they talking about? They're talking about one of the Swiss guards. And the Swiss guards are the ones that are supposed to protect the conclave from outside communications. And maybe he did understand his duties, because they say that they said that the reason for his being arrested was he was unable to, he had an inability or a misunderstanding of his duties. Well, his duties was to protect the conclave from outside interference. And when he would not let somebody bring in a note from the outside or a note from the inside to go out, maybe that's why he was fired. Who knows? And I discovered this decades after it happened. So trying to locate the guard is very, very, very tricky. Now, I want to tell you something else that was in the Las Vegas Review Journal. Now understand that the Las Vegas, Nevada is close to the Nevada nuclear test site. As the conclave, or I should say, as the cardinals were getting ready to organize the conclave, on the day after the Pope died, they talk about returning Pope Pius XII's body to the Vatican from Castel Gandolfo for his funeral. But at the same time, when they talk about this, right underneath this is a picture of an atomic bomb blast. And that it says, nuclear blast destroys tower in fourth full-scale test, or shot, as they call it today. All right, that's that on that day. Then on the 13th, it says, Pope Pius XII buried today with Catholic pomp and ceremonial rites. But then if you look down here, it says, test of current, or it says shot of current series of atomic blast is biggest. That means biggest in history. This is going on. What a coincidence. Okay, here's another one. Third atomic bomb set within 10 hours, 2 fired this morning. And then you go down, this is the front page. And it says, cardinals may pick Pope soon. All right, so then we go a little bit further, same newspaper, October 23rd, Atomic Energy Commission expands shots of nuclear tests to 18. And that's right there, if you can see that. Yes. And then down below it says Italian Pope election sure.
Yes.
And so in other words, they probably would not have gone with a non-Italian at that point. There are others like this, but you get the idea. Now, interestingly enough, as soon as Roncalli came out on the balcony 2 days after the Pope was overthrown, he kept the cardinals sequestered inside the conclave. And some of the conclavists, maybe cooks, bottle washers, plumbers, porters, they left. They thought it was over. And the Vatican's gendarmes were sent out to round them up and bring them back. And they were brought back into the conclave with Roncalli. And he said to them, "You have all been excommunicated. You left the conclave without permission. But I will use my new influence to relieve you of your burden. But you must not leave here until you're given permission." So this was the first ever after election overnight mandated stay by all these conclavists. And then of course included the cardinals and their secretaries. Well, do you know that Cardinal Tardini, who was Vatican Secretary of State, when he heard that the election was over, he came in to congratulate the new Pope. And he was excommunicated on the spot by the Dean of the Sacred College, Cardinal Tisserand, for violating the seal. Well, of course, they were very paranoid about the word getting out, because everybody there knew about that time that the rightful Pope had been overthrown, and they were trying to do some kind of damage control. But so Roncalli, while everybody was still locked up, was chauffeur driven over to Vatican Radio, got on Vatican Radio to announce his election and everything, and to say that the church was going to work toward the leveling of all classes, even if it had to be done by force. I mean, it sounds like something right out of Miles' playbook, And so when he came back, now this is an Italian, so maybe only your Italians will be able to read this. This was in the Corriere della Sera or Il Messaggero. I don't know. Yeah, Corriere della Sera. That's what it was. Anyway, it said that the Soviets had announced a moratorium on nuclear testing. And within 4 hours of that, Washington followed suit. Very interesting. Very interesting time.
This is what I want to ask you on this topic right here. When you were showing those articles, those atomic explosions or testing, whatever it was, what you make out of it? What is really the reason of those two events happening simultaneously at the same time?
Well, you know,
the
back
Pope,
in
with Vatican and this.
Well, back in 58, they didn't have fax machines, but they had a teletype machine. And they could send pictures electronically, as they would have the Vatican press, they would have had a teletype machine. And so those pictures and those newspaper articles could be brought in to the conclave if the Swiss guards and Palatine guards were compliant. Well, how would they do that? Well, all they had to do is bring it into the kitchen. And in the kitchen, there are these turntables or turnstiles. And they would put a plate of food in there, and they spin the turnstile, and it goes into the sealed conclave area. Well, instead of a plate of food, they could have put these teletypes. And they could have shown the cardinals that these tests were going on. And so that they were serious about what they were willing to do to coerce the conclave electors to put the man there that they wanted. And obviously the one that they wanted was the one they got, Angelo Roncalli, who was, you could say, a deep state, if they didn't call it that back then, but a globalist, New World Order toady back then. And the same could be said of Montini. Certainly it could have been said of Wojtyła, and well as Ratzinger, and now Bergoglio.
Can I here ask you something very, very current before we go deeper into those things?
Okay.
The current Pope, I would like to know, when do you think they're going to remove this Pope, or how this will end? Because clearly, I know the deep state is done. It's just a matter of time when this is all happening for a reason, why people are coming across all those informations. Let's talk about the current Pope, Gary. What you can tell us about this person, and how long do you think he will be in this position as he is?
Maybe not so much longer. Maybe not that much longer. He has a lot of very sketchy affiliations going back to his tenure as Archbishop of Buenos Aires. And, there's some videos that are on YouTube that were published 4 months before the conclave that put Bergoglio on the chair. And it shows him participating actively in the worship ceremonies of the synagogue in Buenos Aires, and he's wearing a black yarmulke. He recites the Hebrew prayers of the rabbis. He lights the menorah. Now, in canon law, this is called communicatio sacris. This is active participation in the worship ceremonies of non-Christians, non-Catholics, and the penalty is automatic excommunication. So, I mean, he wasn't even eligible to be elected Pope because he had already done these things. And the requirement, according to canon law, for the election of a Pope, he has to be a man, and he has to be a baptized Catholic that professes what the Catholic Church teaches. And he clearly did not. I mean, he was actively engaged in non-Catholic worship that actually denies, all of the ceremonies of the synagogue, in effect, deny the divinity of Christ. So, for instance, to have Seder services, and which has become very fashionable in some churches during Holy Week, this was all condemned by Pope Pius XII in 1943 in his encyclical Mystici Corporis, because it embraces a system of worship that only anticipates a Messiah, and therefore it, in effect, it denies that the Messiah has already come. And so this is basically what Bergoglio and all of these guys have been into, all of them. That's not what the Catholic Church is about.
So how this continuum with this Vatican and popes will go on? Do you see this continuing forward, or do you see that there is the end coming to that, fake structure actually?
No, I think the end will come. The question is, Anya, how will it come?
Right.
Now there are prophecies of some saints, and there's a little book that came out 52 years ago called Catholic Prophecy by Yves Dupont, and it suggests that Europe will be overrun by Muslim invaders. Well, of course, as you know, that's already happened. There's some places in Paris, for instance, the police can't go. There are these Muslim enclaves. And we're not talking, just peaceful people. We're talking about very radical jihadis. In Belgium, same thing. In Brussels, very, very bad.
In England, too, they are sending more and more boats with immigrants to England.
And so the prophecies say that they'll basically burn down some of the major European capitals. Paris, London, and Rome are three that have been mentioned in some of the prophecies. And that the Pope will have to flee to a place where he's basically unknown. And of course, when they say Pope, the prophecies are not talking about anti-Pope. They're talking about a true Pope. So, for instance, did Giuseppe Siri, the man we believe took the name Gregorius the 17th, Pope Gregorius, did he appoint a successor directly? He could have. We don't have any evidence that he's done that. Might the senior clergy of the local Church of Rome elect a pope on their own? They can do it. They have the authority to do it. St. Robert Bellarmine says this. Cardinal Cajetan affirms that they have this right. Others, like Monsignor Francisco Antonia, the modern theologian, Monsignor Journet, in the 20th century, he's written about it in his book, the Church of the Word Incarnate, as well as Father Paul Parada. They all say if something happens to the cardinals, the authority, the duty, the privilege to elect a pope devolves to that body of clergy to whom it originally belonged, the clergy of the local Church of Rome. So when that happens, and it could even happen even as they're trying to elect some other bogus successor to Bergoglio, because there could be two at one time, a true pope and a false pope, because there's an Italian prophecy, and we talked about this briefly last time. You asked me who was the Black Pope, and I said, well, they refer to the Father General of the Jesuits as the Black Pope, but it's probably referring in this case to an anti-pope. And so, but the Muslims, if they're burning and destroying everything, they probably won't differentiate between an anti-pope and a true pope. And they could both be killed. Little Jacinta of Fatima, she foresaw a pope in a private residence. He was in exile somewhere. Obviously, he wasn't in the Vatican. And she said that she saw people throwing stones at the house, knowing that the Pope was in there and saying many vile things against him. And he was on his knees up against the table with his face in his hands. And Lucia, who was a little bit older, said to her, don't speak of this anymore, because if you do, you'll give away the third secret, and then everybody will know. So I think the third secret of Fatima was about, part of it was about the martyrdom of a true pope, but I think it also had, I think it probably referred to the role of the USA in maybe fomenting World War III, because that's what's happening right now. The USA is trying everything they can to provoke Russia into a war with Europe, everything they can. And you cannot separate these political developments from the intrigues going on in the church. They are just totally intertwined. And for years and years now, decades, they have had a new world order stooge usurping the chair of Peter, and they have brought the official church to wreck and ruin. But they are in cahoots with the evil world powers that are bringing us closer and closer to total annihilation. Of course, that's what they want. These people, as you know, Anya, they hate mankind. They want to reduce the world's population. They try to do it with the COVID scam, and now the COVID vaccine kill shot. And if they are not able,
we have to be careful about those words on YouTube now. Still,
okay,
you know?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, because it creates a problem for me.
I
so I just had to learn how to talk about certain things using different languages. But my audience is very aware of it. So
I noticed our friend Alice Christoforo calls it the coof.
The coof, yes.
The coof
is perfect. Yeah, I like the coof.
The coof. I don't know how he came up with it, but it
Gary,
seems to work for him.
Gary, I want to ask you now. Just came this question to me. I didn't really think to ask you this, but how do you see the role of Russia in this situation with the Vatican? Do you see Russia? How do you see Russia and Vatican as far as this situation? Do you think there is anything connecting that as far as exposure, or because you don't really hear about this much, right? Although the current Pope, which I think, I have my own opinion about this creature. I call him creature. So because
Accurate.
It's a creature. So
he's a creature.
I mean, he had a little bit different opinion about the situation in Ukraine. I would like to know your opinion. What do you think Russia and Vatican, as far as how is this going from now on forward?
Well, in 1917, about 80,000 people witnessed the miracle of the sun in Fatima. This was on the 13th of October, 1917. The miracle was for the purpose of affirming the authenticity of the message that was given to those three children. And the miracle was affirmed by the secular press, O Seculo, which was not favorable to Christianity, Catholicism, whatever. And yet their on-site reporters revealed what they saw. They couldn't deny it. And so part of that message was that Russia would spread her errors around the world. I've talked about this at length on another interview program. She didn't say the Soviet Union. Russia had its own problems. It had its own problems before the Soviets took over. And I won't get into that now. Many of these ideas did spread to other countries. Now Russia, after it's thrown off the yoke of communism after 73 years, they are trying to reassert the nation as a Christian nation. They have put in their constitution a statement stating that the Russian Federation is a Christian nation. In January 2020, they further amended it to say that marriage is a union between a man and a woman, thereby additionally affirming a Christian mindset about society. Okay. Where does Vladimir Putin fit in this? He claims that he was baptized when he was a year and a half old. He has a crucifix his mother gave him that he keeps with him at all times. Right after Bergoglio's installation as Francis I, Putin went to see him, apparently for state reasons. At some point, he split with the script and said to Bergoglio, what about the consecration of Russia? Now, this is of something of concern to Catholics, and yet Putin is a Russian Orthodox. And yet he wanted to know about, when is this consecration of Russia going to take place? Are you going to do it? What do we have to do? What's involved? And the response he got was a rebuke from Bergoglio. He says, we do not discuss Fatima. Now that was his mindset then. Now he went, as you know, Bergoglio went through some kind of a bogus consecration of Russia and Ukraine back in March, on the March 25th, on the feast of the Annunciation. But it really wasn't done according to the way Our Lady requested it. And on top of that, he attributed or I should say, he carried out this consecration to the lady from the as he called it, the land that comes from the sky. This was a title not to the Mother of God, but to the Pachamama pagan idol in South America that he brought in during some ceremony, I guess it was a year or two ago, and for which the Vatican really got a lot of egg on its face. And but he revealed himself to be a kind of a quasi-pagan worshiper. Sometime after Putin's meeting with Bergoglio, he was quoted by Zero Hedge as saying, Francis is not a man of God, at least not the Christian God, and he seems more interested in establishing a world political order. So
Putin said that? Putin said that?
Putin, he's quoted in Zero Hedge as saying that, okay?
Okay.
I mean, you can find that anywhere online if you want to. So that was very interesting, but he affirmed what I've been saying, that Bergoglio is just a globalist New World Order type. Now, in the prophecies regarding Russia and Fatima, Our Lady said to Sister Lucy, and I think she repeated this to Father Fuentes during an interview that took place in 1957, that the Pope will do the consecration of Russia, in other words, the way he's supposed to do it, together with the bishops, to her Immaculate Heart. But he will be late in doing it. What does that mean, late? Is that after World War III and half of the West has been devastated? Don't know. Yes, ma'am.
But Gary, I just want to say, someone has actually emailed me an article and a picture of that taking place.
Right, that was on the 25th of March of this year.
Oh,
but
that's what it was.
But it was
okay.
it was a sham. It wasn't done according to the way it had been requested, according to Sister Lucy from the Mother of God. Also, Wojtyła did it, also not according to the way it was requested. Now, Pius XII did it twice, and he was a real pope, but he was already surrounded by infiltrators who did not give him the proper formula that she wanted to be used. So it's never been done properly. And so apparently Putin seemed to know that. I thought that's quite amazing that has he done some research on this? One Russian Orthodox commentator asked the question, is Putin's conversion to Russian Orthodoxy sincere? And he checked off all these boxes that seemed to be, answer that question affirmatively, except he said, I can't understand exactly what is his abiding interest in the Roman Catholic Church. And I don't know either. I mean, I've never met President Putin, but boy, would I have some questions for him if I did. But in any case, I think, well, let me just tell you what one priest wrote in the book, the famous book. It was a book about the apocalypse. It's called The Book of Destiny. It was written in 1955 by Father Kramer. And he doesn't base it on Fatima. He bases it on the 12th chapter of the Apocalypse. He says that the Pope, which is symbolized by the woman, and the woman, he says, is not the mother of God, but the church, will take flight from Rome on the wings of the eagle. He characterizes the wings of the eagle as an airplane headed for a nation whose symbol is the eagle. Well, because Father Kramer is from the USA, he was happy to predict that, or at least he implied that America was going to come to the rescue of the Pope. Not a chance. As you know, on the official flag of Russia, they have the imperial two-headed eagle of the Romanovs. If anybody has as a symbol the eagle, it would be Russia. I suspect that the Pope will seek refuge not in the USA, which caused his overthrow, but in Russia. And I think that is what will bring about the consecration of Russia. But I'll tell you this, Anya, there's almost no valid Roman Catholic bishops left, at least not of the Roman Rite. There are some valid Eastern Rite bishops, Melkites, Byzantine, Syrian Malankara, spread around the world. But the bishops of the Roman Rite changed the rite of episcopal consecration, or it was changed for them by Paul VI. So they haven't been consecrating any valid bishops since 1968, over 50 years ago. So the ones that are validly consecrated, I mean, are very few and very old. I think what will happen is that the Russian Orthodox Church, which is also right now very much in dismay over the split up of orthodoxy, because you know there was a big split between the Russian patriarch and the Ukrainian patriarch, and as a result, the Ukrainian patriarch now has aligned himself with the Patriarch of Constantinople. This is the first time this has happened ever. And so they themselves admitted that this was the biggest split since the original schism in 1054, when Constantinople broke with the See of Rome. And I think that the Russians are very shaken over this. And even the Serbian patriarch said that the separation of the Eastern Church from Rome was an unmitigated disaster. They may see in the leadership of a true pope a way to reunify Christendom. They may give him a haven. They may participate with him in this consecration. As such, they may become Eastern Rite Catholic bishops again. I don't know. I'll say this for them. They have preserved the integrity of their traditional liturgy, which is more than we can say for the Roman Rite, which has thrown all of that overboard, has brought in all kinds of bizarre ceremonies that don't meet the requirement for validity. So I think the Pope will end up in Russia for a time. And I think that there will be this conversion. And I think it'll be the Russian hierarchy that will participate in this consecration. And that's what I think. I could be wrong, but I mean, the options are getting fewer and farther between because we're running out of time.
Well, now something else came to my mind, and this is a little bit changing the gears here. However, still related to the current Pope/creature. So I'm sure you've seen that footage, and I want to ask your thoughts and your opinion on this. There was some time ago, there was a footage circulating when Trump has visited the Vatican, and there was this moment when he was standing next to the current Pope/creature, and he was touching him on the side with his pinky, like in a way, jokingly, but it looked like Trump is in power, and Pope seemed very, very disturbed and upset. Like it looked like Trump has something on him. He's on the top, and then the Pope is standing and is getting frustrated. So I just want to hear from you, Gary, since you are so knowledgeable about Vatican and all those schmucks there. What, in your opinion, was that about?
Anya, you stumped me on that one. I have no recollection of that.
No way.
No, I didn't see that. I don't know everything. Well, and
okay,
part of my problem is that, Anya, part of my problem is I'm very old. I can tell you in detail what I was doing 65 years ago, but don't ask me where I put that cess screw 10 minutes ago, because my short-term memory is shot. But I can remember back.
I'm gonna email this to you, and you will take a look at it.
I'll look at it.
But so let me take you to my next question, which is very, very important. As I have came across those things through my research, have I know this for sure? I don't. However, I think that's the case. In the Vatican's library, not even library, I think there's like a sacred place where they keep in Vatican all the hidden truths, the truths that are hidden away from humanity. The most powerful books, the knowledge, the wisdom, the universal truths, the holy truths. How much do you know about those places like the Library of Vatican, and what they really have there, Gary?
Well, first thing I'd like to know is what did they do with it? That secret, that third secret of Fatima, because what we heard was the Pope, in this case, the real Pope, Pius XII, did open it and retired to his papal apartments and remained there in seclusion, where he wept bitterly for nearly 2 weeks. That was a story we heard from our local chancery office back in 1957. So what is in there that was so horrendous it would make the Pope cry? And why wasn't it revealed? Because he died, year and a half after that. They brought in John the 23rd, and of course we were waiting anxiously for this secret to be revealed. And he said that it does not refer to my pontificate. Of course, it certainly did. And that he was not going to reveal it. And it was supposedly dropped into the deep well of the Vatican archives or library, where, it could not be accessed. So you're right about that. There are a lot of things in there that, we would like to see. Most of the stuff that's secret, of course, is what has happened at those conclaves. And the reason that those conclaves are secret is because they do not want world leaders to know how cardinals from their own countries voted. Of course, after 3 or 4 generations, it really wouldn't matter. So I'm like a lot of people, I would like to see those documents too, As far as some dark stuff, evil things the church is involved in, which they would have us believe, I don't think that that's what they're hiding. Unless they have dossiers on some of these characters who claim to have been popes these last 65 years. There was that report in one of the Malachi Martin books that there was a satanic ritual going on in the Vatican the same week that Montini's first appeared on the papal balcony. I'd really like to see some evidence of that. Would it even be put on a document in the Vatican library? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. I don't know. It's, unless you're an insider, and of course I've never been given access to that, it would be really hard to know.
So now, what do you think? How many more popes we might still have after this one?
A lot of people, including myself, put a lot of credibility in the prophecies of Saint Malachi, the Bishop of Armagh, Ireland. He described the various popes from his time to the end with amazing accuracy, not giving exactly their names, but some very prominent aspect of their pontificate or their personality. And But he also predicted the names of some, not all, but some of the anti-popes. For instance, during the Great Western Schism, there were 4 anti-popes, one of which he referred to as Moon over Cosmodin, and this is believed to refer to Baldassar Cosa. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. Baldassar Cosa was one of the anti-popes. But the one that Moon over Cosmodin apparently was referring to was Benedict XIII, the name taken by Pedro de Luna, which is a reference to the moon. Well, he referenced that word again in our time. He referred to one of these popes in modern times as the Mediatate Lunae, which means from the the mist of the moon or the eclipse of the moon. And just as he did not name all the anti-popes of the Great Western Schism, I don't think that Malachi has named or given designations of all the anti-popes of the current schism and apostasy of the conciliar age. And so when he referenced the Mediatate Lunae from the eclipse of the moon, I think he's talking about the church being eclipsed, the church, like the sun, being eclipsed by the moon passing in front of it. And matter of fact, that was even carried out very symbolically on October 16, 1978, when Siri came out on the balcony, and out comes Wojtyła, and he stands right in front of him. You can see it on the old newsreel and in pictures. And it was a literal eclipse. The rightful Pope was in the background, and there's Wojtyła with his very round face, taking center stage. And they referred to him at that time as the foreign Pope. But what was very bizarre was that he took, that his name was Karol Wojtyła. When Morris West had just written the book, The Shoes of the Fisherman, just 10 years before, in which he predicted the election of a cardinal by the name of Kirill Lakota. And even people at the time were thinking incredible similarity between Kirill Lakota and Karol Wojtyła. And he was also a Slavic outsider. And by the way, on that score, West wrote 2 sequels to the Shoes of the Fisherman. And maybe you saw the movie with Anthony Quinn. One of which was The Clowns of God. And in The Clowns of God, he talks about a cardinal on the and this is on the very first book. It's a prologue. He talks about a pope by the name of Gregory the 17th. That was the name of Siri. And he says, on the 7th year of his reign, 2 days before his 65th birthday, Pope Gregory the 17th signed an instrument of abdication, took off the fisherman's ring, handed his seal to the Cardinal Camerlengo, and made a curt speech of farewell. So, my brethren, it is done as you have demanded of me. That's almost exactly what Siri said after he was overthrown. He was supposed to have said, if you don't want me, then elect someone else. Well, West wrote another book. And these guys, Malachi Martin, Morris West, these guys, they're insiders. They're putting out a thinly veiled novel of what actually happened. But they just can't help bragging on themselves. In the book Lazarus, again by Morris West, he talks again about Gregory the 17th, who is approached by the cardinals who seek his counsel as if they knew he was still a pope. And that happened. That happened during 1962 when they wanted to do something about the heretical priest Teilhard de Chardin, and they let Siri through the Holy Office, this was a bone they threw to Syria, organized the condemnations of Chardin's errors and his heresies. He was promoting the Piltdown Man hoax, basically the missing link between the apes and humans in this fable of evolution. And it turns out that the jaw that he used to prove this link was a jaw taken from a pig. Anyway, so
how many more popes, Gary?
Okay, so that's right. Anyway, getting very far afield here. Malachi, the Archbishop of Armagh, Saint Malachi, predicted after they Meditate Lunae, there would be 3 popes, one of which is called De Labore Solis, of the labor of the sun. Then the second one would be the glory of the olive, and then third, Peter the Roman. And after reading the prophecies of these saints, I think that the labor of the sun will be a rightful pope that will be apparently provided by some independent action by the clergy of the local Church of Rome under very dire circumstances, maybe in the middle of a Muslim uprising. I mean, they don't have to carry out an amphibious assault. They're already in Europe in mass.
So after this one is the next one, the good one?
Is the next one, but he's the one I think that will be stoned to death according to the predictions of Jacinta of Fatima. All right, but he will have turned the corner, and then everybody will know, oh, these other characters were not popes. He was the real pope. Then I think Russia will, again, according to the prophecies, will defeat the Muslims. I think Russia will be a Catholic nation again, because it was originally. And I think most of Europe will return to its Christian roots. You know, there's no mention of that in the EU's constitution. They act like, you know, Europe was never Christian, certainly never Catholic. But I think that will all come back after the EU has been imploded, and those nations will come back, and there will be there'll be a true Christian civilization. And some predict the rise of a French monarch under whom the Christian nations will unite. Some even believe that that person could be Prince Sixtus Henri de Bourbon-Parme, who, by the way, has visited us here in Texas about 3 times. Now he's pretty well up in years now. He's about this July 22nd, he will turn 82. And he has difficulty walking. He has 2 canes due to a vehicle accident in which he was severely injured in Argentina 22 years ago, which could very well have been some kind of an assassination attempt. And by the way, he is also a fellow investigator. He interviewed Cardinal Siri's assistant in the Conclave, and that's been written up on a biography about him. So he's very much an ally of our cause. He's a traditional Catholic, attends a Latin Mass. I haven't spoken to him in some time, but from all outward appearances, you would think he's not physically able to do much. But God can work miracles. The prophecies do say that the great monarch will walk with a limp, and he certainly does that. He's using 2 canes. All right.
So can I interfere here, because
Sure.
It takes me to another question with this. And before I forget, you said we already talked about this in the previous conversation, and now again about Washington, US being involved in Vatican. Clearly, we know this. Now, from your knowledge, how big is the British royal family involvement in Vatican and pulling the strings there?
Probably because I think the UK and the US are joined at the hip. I mean, we can see that in the way they are trying to prop up the Ukrainian resistance to the Russian intervention there to save the people of Donbass from being killed by the
Yes.
Azov battalion, So they're very much of one mind, and with all of their entangling alliances and everything, and together with Australia and New Zealand. So yes, I would say very much involved. But just to go back to answer your question about how many popes. So once the dust is settled and the enemies of God and man have been, for the most part, destroyed, I do think we'll see the return of Christian civilization, and I think we'll see a period of peace and restoration for the church and for Christian society. And I think that refers to the pontificate known as the glory of the olive. And I think that pope will reign for quite a long time. Then the last pope in St. Malachi's prophecies is Peter the Roman. And what happens after that? Who knows? Some people think Christ himself will come to reign during the final triumph of the church, maybe for a short time, certainly not 1,000 years, but it's just impossible to speculate with any possibility of being accurate.
But Gary, can I ask you about this glory of the olive? What is the time frame? Was it in the prophecy and the time frame?
They don't give dates, of course. I mean, Anya, do you believe that this current crisis could last more than 5 years without the world blowing up? I can't see how we're going to go another 2 years without some kind of a confrontation between Russia and the collective West. What do you think?
I know something is going to happen. I don't know exactly what and what kind of. I think what I see is there will be definitely attempt from the Western countries to really poke the bear. I mean, like really poke the bear. But somehow the reaction that Russia will make, or even the coalition with China and the BRICS countries will manage that poking without creating a massive global turmoil. That's how I see it. I know it sounds strange, but I do believe that God wins. That's how I see it. God wins. And I know that we will survive as a humanity, but I am also very aware how desperately they are trying, which to me is a sign of losing. Almost like they are losing and they are trying harder and harder because they are losing the power. You can tell they are losing the power. The power is shifting on a different side of the world right now. So I don't really see nuclear explosions or anything like that, but I do see escalation of conflict and more countries getting involved in it from the eastern side. That's how I see it.
Well, I could see how that could be possible with the imminent collapse of the Western economies.
Yes.
And at the same time, I understand that they're emptying out their inventories of weapons, having shipped all of that to Ukraine, which either gets blown to bits or is confiscated by the Russians and put in their warehouses.
Yes.
So if there was a war anytime now between NATO, a conventional war between NATO and Russia, you'd have to ask, can the West even defend itself? So they might be checkmated, and I'm hoping that your evaluation is correct. I mean, because otherwise the loss of life would just really be catastrophic. But after the dust settles, though, that I would say, I have to think, just simply because of the ages of the clergy and the bishops who have the power to straighten this out. The bishops are nearly all in their hundreds. The ones that I know, I just went to visit one of them, the youngster in the group, who's 99 years old, and there's just very few of them left. Very few.
So before we end today, Gary, I want to ask you, because I didn't mention this last time, but you actually have created, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 portraits of American presidents. Can you tell me who was that president that you have portraits of?
I just happen to have one here. Here's one I did in 1981 of President Reagan. And I did his successor. I also did President Trump in 2016. But this one of Reagan actually built my house, Anya. We sold so many copies.
Good for you. Good for you.
I'm not trying to advertise this, but just to give your
why did you do it? That's my question.
I do other things besides this ecclesiastical activism. I actually do have to work for a living. My degree was in fine arts from the University of Houston. My specialty was portrait art and commercial art, illustration. And I've worked as a technical illustrator, a model builder, a industrial plant designer, all kind of things like that. But I really do like the pencil portraits because not too many people do those.
Right.
And we sold a whole bunch of them. So you
had Reagan, you have Trump, and you had who, Carter, or who was?
No, it was George H.W. Bush, who I probably would not have done had I realized what a dark character he was at the time. But that was, 30 years ago.
So he didn't build you the house. That's good. That's good.
What'd you say?
That Bush portrait didn't build you the house, Reagan portrait. So at least that.
We sold very few Bush pictures. And on top of that, when they held their convention in Houston, where he was renominated, I couldn't even get them to buy any at that time because they had already decided they were going to dump Bush and put in Clinton. It was all so orchestrated. I mean, you could tell that they were going to get rid of Bush to bring in Clinton.
Yes.
So,
Reagan
agreed. Was in for 2 terms, and we sold many tens of thousands of them. And I sold quite a few Trump also, even though he's only in for 1 term.
So Gary, before we end today, because I also have to go, is there anything else you would like to add to my audience?
Well, just say that we're working on this constantly. We want to get this book finally finished, The Plot Against the Pope. And they can look at some interesting information at that site, theplotaagainstthepope.com. And there's a place where they can send us inquiries. If they go to stjudeshrine.tv, I believe there's a place where they can send emails, inquiries. We try to answer every inquiry people have. And we'll try to get our live stream also up to speed as fast as possible. We're going to do a Sunday, but it's going to be very much scaled back from what we have been doing in the past. So, but anyway,
thank you.
Anytime you want to do this, just let me know.
Yes.
I will try to be better prepared next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gary, for coming on again. And to everyone watching, thank you so much for watching this conversation. Remember, likes are free of charge. This is my new thing. Likes are free of charge. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel also. It helps the channel to grow and bring more like-minded, awaken, caring about humanity and love.
I'm a subscriber. I subscribe.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. All the links to Gary you find down below. And then if you want to support the church, that is what Gary has mentioned in the very beginning of the video. So you can help to restore that cameras, right, Gary? Cameras.
That's correct.
Yes. Thank you, guys. And until next time, lots of love, everyone.
Bye, Anya.